Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and today we're going to be replacing the screen on the Samsung Note20 Ultra. So the tools you're going to need are going to be a PH000 bit, a pick of some sort, a razor blade, a prying tool like this, a playing card, and some heat. You will also need some glue and some clamps, as well as maybe some adhesive. So the first thing we're going to do is heat up the back because we want to loosen up the adhesive so we can get a razor blade in between the back glass and the frame and use a playing card to cut through the adhesive. I recommend lifting it up a little bit like this and then cutting through the adhesive on the bottom first so then you don't crack the glass that easily. Once the adhesive is loose, you can cut through the bottom portion and then go up the right portion. And the main goal is to go up all the way to the right portion and then go up the left portion as well, loosening up the adhesive pretty much to the cameras or to the power button. And then we're going to go back to the right side, loosen up that adhesive as well as the top adhesive. And the main thing we want to do is get the back like this, and we want to add adhesive and just kind of lift it over to the left side where the cameras are. And once that's removed, you can remove all the adhesive that you see, but I'm just going to leave it on there just for now, so we're going to do that later. Next, we're going to remove all the screws that we see. Just like we did on the Note20, we're going to add pressure and push down on the screws to remove them. You want to make sure not to strip any of these screws because they are very easy to strip. You made that mistake on the Note20, we're not going to make that mistake on the Note20 Plus or Ultra. But like I said, remove all the screws that you see, including the 5G antenna screws, even if your phone doesn't have 5G. Then the first thing we're going to do is unplug the wireless charging cable, and then we're going to lift up this little panel right here. There is another cable that does get unplugged, and you just got to be careful when you do put that back together. But we're going to fold this down, we're going to unplug the battery, and the next thing we're going to do is remove the top plastic panel, but you have to unplug this cable right here, and then lift up the plastic panel like this. Next we can lift up the other speaker on the bottom, and that just comes out pretty easily. Now grab the PH000 bit, remove these 3 screws right here, and now we can remove the SIM card tray if you haven't done that already. And we can unplug all these cables that are attached to the logic board, including the front camera, and we can try and lift up the logic board on the right side like this. Now you can unplug this cable right here, but I kept it attached to the logic board because I don't need to unplug it really. But we just want to loosen up the 5G antenna and loosen up all this other stuff down here, including this charging port that kind of is a little bit difficult to remove, but it just comes out like this. Next we can remove the S Pen and put it into the new phone, but what I like to do is I like to remove this little plastic piece right here because sometimes it doesn't sync to the new S Pen properly if you're not using the original one. I don't know if it's just not lined up properly on the new screens, but this is just something that I noticed. So make sure to remove that and we can apply that to the new frame. And one of the last things we want to do is remove the vibrating mechanism, which kind of just lifts up like this. Now we can use this pry tool to kind of lift up the battery very carefully. You don't want to puncture the battery, obviously, but the main goal is you want to lift up the battery just enough so you can get a plastic pick or a plastic pry tool under the battery so you can cut through the rest of the adhesive. This may take some time, so just be careful and patient, but eventually you'll be able to cut through the adhesive like I'm doing right here, and then the battery should just lift up over to the side like this. And I forgot this other 5G antenna, so we're just going to carefully lift that up. And then as for the front camera, you don't want to lift that up right now, but what you want to do is you want to add some heat to loosen up the adhesive on the camera, just a little bit of heat. You don't want to add too much, and pretty much what you're going to do is remove this little adhesive piece that's on the bottom, and then the adhesive piece that's on the right side of the front camera. This is something that they did on the S20s, but not on the S20 Ultra, so it's kind of weird to see it on the Note 20 Ultra. But either way, once that gets loosened up, the front camera will come out, and we can take off this adhesive. And if you want to remove the adhesive that's in the new screen, if it has one, you can do that, or you can kind of just set it back in place when we do put the logic board in. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the adhesive from the battery, just the old adhesive, and we're going to apply our new adhesive, and we're going to set the battery in place, eventually. I say eventually because we're going to put the vibrating mechanism back in right now. We can also put in the antenna on the right side, and we can put in the daughter board and the charging port back in place. Fold this over like this, and put the battery back in place as well. Then we can wedge the logic board back in on the top, make sure everything is set down properly, and we want to make sure that that battery plugs in, but you don't want to leave it plugged in. So make sure anything that's hanging out is either plugged in or in the right place. And we can plug in that front camera, make sure that's in the right place, and lastly plug in the screen as well. Like I said, you want to remove this little plastic S Pen place. Sometimes it does crack, but this is on the new screen, so it doesn't really matter because we're going to reuse the old one. So I'm just going to plug that in, set that back in place, and it should be good. And we might as well put in the S Pen while we're at it. We're going to put in the screws for the antennas, and we're going to put in the bottom screws for the charging port and that daughter board. Next, we're going to put in the bottom speaker, starting with the bottom portion and pushing down on the top portion, as well as putting the screws in to hold that piece in place. Next, we put that plastic piece on top, starting with the top portion and pushing down on the bottom portion. And then we're going to put in all the screws on the top and plug in that cable. Next, we can plug in the battery and put this little metal piece back in place. We want to add pressure right here because there is a plug on the right side, and then we want to add pressure on the left side to plug in the rest of the wireless charging cable. Now you can put in all those screws. We can put it in the SIM card tray now or later, doesn't really matter, and get ready to put the back glass back in place. So on this one, you want to remove all the adhesive and apply new adhesive. And the main goal is to make sure that everything is flat. So if there is any adhesive that's kind of lifted up, you want to make sure to kind of scrape that out. And during that time, you want to make sure not to bend the back glass too much because it could crack. But either way, once the back glass is clean, we can apply adhesive to the edge of the phone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this waterproofing glue around the edge of the phone. Obviously, it's not going to be a waterproof because it never was. It was water resistant, but there's no way for me to really test that. But ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to apply all this stuff. I'm going to set this back down, make sure it's fitting properly, and I'm going to add some clamps to kind of hold it in place. And I'm going to let this dry for about 2 to 3 hours. Once that drying time is over, pretty much what I'm going to do is just remove all the clamps. I'm going to clean up all the adhesive, and that's pretty much it. If there is any excess adhesive, all you got to do is just use something like your finger or fingernail to kind of cut through that adhesive and loosen it up from the back. It's not really too difficult. You don't need any metal or anything like that. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video helped you out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or message me on Twitter. I get bored over there. Feel free to follow me on the social media listed above, subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos like this, as well as some review videos, and hit that bell button so then YouTube reminds you when those videos do come out. Thanks for watching.